Many investors have a weak grasp on reality when it comes to financial matters, and they're ill prepared to understand the changes that are sweeping across the financial landscape due to financial changes and regulatory changes. Many investors aren't prepared to understand the implications of these changes to their financial health. Investors must be better educated about the importance of diversification, taxes, and mutual fund fees. But first, they need to understand the basics of investing, like what is a stock, what is a bond, how do the markets move. There was a survey taken at the University of California, and it showed that investors understood very little about tax-managed investing. Less than a third were aware of investments specifically designed to maximize after-tax returns like municipal bonds. But taxes are going up, and the reason is that you can't pay for a growing budget deficit, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid without a tax increase. It doesn't matter what the newly elected politicians' rhetoric says now. Taxes have to go up, and they will make it happen, although they'll always blame the other party, whichever one that is. Ernst & Young agrees. Given the demographic shift that's occurring in this country, something has to be done, they said. In 2025, the demographic changes will be so great that the whole country will look like Florida. The value added by a financial advisor is going to come under greater scrutiny than ever before. A good financial advisor should be able to prevent an investor from making bad choices. If they're uninformed themselves or they can't prevent an investor from making bad choices, we don't want them as advisors. Investor education, as it stands right now, is not adequate to ensure that investors make the right investment decisions on their own. A money management firm made a survey of 1,000 investors in 2005, and 84% of them were optimistic they'd live comfortably in retirement. But analysis of that study said that many of those investors are going to be disappointed because they aren't saving enough to retire comfortably. It's a serious disconnect that investor education could solve. As changes are made to the Social Security and taxes are hiked and the baby boomer generation ages, the perception problem should be helped by investor education. So it may not be a good thing for investors to not be informed enough to make good decisions. The average investor lies somewhere between ignorance is bliss and knowledge is power, and is unsure of just how far they want to go in either direction. What's more, there's a serious debate in the financial services business about whether an investor should be tilted toward those extremes or settle comfortably in the middle. For proof, consider two other recent and very different studies of investors, one concerning knowledge and its ability to provide and create control, and the other about surrendering control, primarily due to a lack of knowledge. When compared, the two studies make for an intriguing landscape, giving investors food for thought about just what position they want to assume on the financial horizon. AARP's Financial Money Smarts survey determined that investors are lost in financial jargon. 40% of the 1,200 plus people surveyed said that information from financial services providers is not so helpful or not at all helpful. In addition, more than half of the respondents said they don't read financial literature because it's too hard to understand. Almost 4 out of 5 said they have an easier time understanding prescription drug inserts or car insurance policies than mutual fund prospectuses. Perhaps more importantly, more than half of the public surveyed in this AARP study confessed to making an investment mistake because they were confused or didn't understand. The most common mistakes cited were failure to invest or waiting too long to invest. The second study was by Bill Sharp's Financial Engines, and they looked at the percentage of people whose employers enrolled them in a managed account program and found that an average of 60% stay with the program. But that's disappointing. In 2006, the Pension Protection Act was supposed to revolutionize retirement savings and ease the nation's savings shortfall. Well, it didn't do that. The Financial Engines study showed that most 401k plan sponsors put existing retirement plan participants into a managed account program, one where they could get some measure of guidance and asset allocation help. But a big chunk of those folks backed out. No help? Why? That's not what Congress believed. and not what most observers expected. Admittedly, enrollment stays higher for people who are starting a new job and wind up being automatically put into a plan. But the industry research shows that 4 out of 5 employees stay the course and do not opt out of the retirement savings plan. Without automatic enrollment, a retirement plan that can convince roughly half of the employees to participate can brag about a high success rate, 50%. That's not that great. The chief executive of Financial Engines said he believes many of the people who opt out of the managed program are deciding to follow their own plan, which is not necessarily a bad thing, provided they're educated, informed, and saving and headed in the right direction. But if investors are bamboozled by the financial jargon, there's a real question of whether they don't know what they don't know is going to come back to haunt them. So automatic enrollment in a 401k was supposed to help people, but they still have to worry about the big decisions, how much to save, when to retire, how much risk, but they let somebody else worry about the investments. So this is where the two schools of thought start to diverge. On the surface, everybody agrees financial education is a big deal. Regulators got millions of dollars from mutual fund firms from the scandals in 2003 and 4 and earmarked those funds for investor education, although it's hard to see any real success from those efforts or actually where the money went at all. Mutual fund firms are busy working on a SEC initiative to develop a summary prospectus that helps investors get through the clutter. But the AARP study compared investing understanding to understanding an auto mechanic. Consider how this situation can play out with an investor feeling more comfortable by knowing just a bit less. Your car is one of your biggest expenditures. One that, like your financial nest egg, you want to make last in good condition for as long as possible. While you can do your own repairs and know what's necessary to keep the car in good working order, most people don't change their own oil and are better off focusing on keeping the car serviced properly than wondering about the nuts and bolts under the hood themselves. Consumers can't afford to be ignorant about how a car works lest they wind up overpaying for repairs or simply running the vehicle into the ground by never getting it serviced. Yet they also don't need to be a trained auto mechanic. Likewise for investors. You need to know the big things. Are you saving enough? Can you sleep at night when your assets are exposed to risk? What's the time horizon? But you leave the finer points of asset allocation to a hired hand. Yeah, investors would be better off if they understood the jargon, but we need to help them take the time to get up the learning curve. And the most important thing to know is what you don't know. AARP said people don't need to know every little thing, but they do need to understand what they're doing. The problem is they get put off by the things they don't know or think they don't know. So in short, you don't need to be capable of managing a mutual fund in order to invest in one. But don't be ignorant. Don't feel like you need an advanced degree in order to make successful choices. You don't want to be taken advantage of or have a problem because of what you don't know. There are resources out there. There are ways for people to put together portfolios where they're focused on finding the right professionals or getting the right guidance and giving the program enough to work with so that they can reach their goal. Money culture is being developed to be that primary resource.